Folks, one of the things that I enjoy about One Rental at a Time is Sunday mornings, I get to talk to new faces with new stories. Today, we have the one and only Andrew Freed, who has an amazing real estate story. We're going to learn about that, but more importantly, we're going to talk about the importance of velocity of capital. It really can turbocharge your portfolio. But before we get into that topic, let's learn a little bit about Andrew. How you doing, buddy?
I am doing fantastic. Thank you for having me, Michael.
Absolutely, man. I love to hear your story. First, let me give you some props for the purple. I am a fan of the purple lights in the background, so nicely done. But Andrew, tell us the story. What is Andrew's story with real estate?
So my story goes back to COVID when, I essentially ran out of vices to escape the reality that I created, right? Like I couldn't play any more video games. I couldn't watch any more movies. Like I literally ran out of stuff to do. And I really had to come face to face with, is this the reality that I want to live? And prior to that, I really went after the American dream, get a good education, get a good job, get a nice six-figure salary, get a swanky condo in a city. Like I did it all, right? But at the end of the day, I felt empty. I felt like I had so much more potential on the table, like many of your listeners. And when I came to that realization, that's when I found this amazing book, Rich Dad Poor Dad. I ate the purple pill, and
Yep.
in there, there was little like riddles of real estate. And at that point, I looked at my net worth, and I was like, it was $250,000 at that point. $200,000 came from that one bedroom condo I completely forgot about. It
Mm.
literally took me it literally took me 10 years to save up $50,000.
Right.
So at that point, it was kind of a light bulb to me, like maybe there's something to this real estate thing.
Yeah.
So I ended up taking a home line of credit, a HELOC on my one bedroom condo for around $200,000.
Mhm.
And I utilized that to start buying multifamily in Worcester, Massachusetts, which is about 45 minutes west of Boston, where
Nice.
I house hacked probably three or four properties. Then I started joint venturing, splitting, five, six plexes, 50/50, 33%.
Mhm.
Essentially, I ran out of my own cash at, probably, a year into my journey, year and a half into my journey. I still had these amazing deals coming my way. So I ended up figuring out how to raise capital from investors. So I started joint venturing, syndicating, and now today I'm up to around 350 doors. I have a property management company that manages 250 doors, and I host one of the largest real estate meetups in my area.
That's awesome. Well, it's real. I love this story. Again, I share similar. Go to school, get a good job, blah blah blah. Did all that stuff. One of the things that you did that I just want to hit again is something I call the cheat code to wealth. If you're
Mm,
able to do it and it fits your lifestyle, and that's just house hacking, right?
totally.
The ability to live somewhere, take your expenses down to zero, or even earn money living where you live. It's the cheat code. So talk about the importance of house hacking to start off your journey.
Oh my god, it was so important because you got to think about it, right? Like I went from this one bedroom condo where about 60% of my income was utilized in mortgage, in interest, in everything associated with home ownership, right? I
Yep.
rented out that condo and then I moved to a threeplex where two of the units paid 3,200 revenue. My mortgage was 3,200 revenue. Oh, and by the way, I rented out that condo that completely rented and paid for the mortgage and the HELOC payment, right? So literally just by making that one move, I
Yeah.
literally added $3,000 to my rental income. And Michael, as you
Yeah.
and I both know, how many long-term rentals do you need for $3,000 in monthly cash flow? In real monthly cash
Yeah.
flow, you need a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, more,
you know
more than a couple, more than a couple. But
exactly,
I mean, that is
exactly.
the cheat code to wealth. I want to give a shout out to somebody who's been on the channel, part of my events, PTO for Life. They were just featured in Business Insider in the last week or so. They've done 9 house hacks. That's all they've ever done. That's their investing journey, 9 house hacks, and they're
Wow.
financially free. I think they're like 35 years old or something. It's just an amazing story. You only if your life allows, and again, she tells the story of living in a house with guys and all of that. So it is sacrifice,
Totally.
but if you're willing to do it for a little bit of time, you can have 50, 60, 70 years of financial freedom. So shout out Jeff and Saleka for doing that. Yeah. So let's get into what we really want to talk about here today. And it's really a conversation I haven't had with anybody else. So thanks for
Mhm.
bringing it up. And that is
Sure.
the concept of velocity of capital. Why don't we step back and define that first? Because maybe it's a term maybe they've heard of it, but they don't really know what it means. When you think velocity of capital, what does it mean to you?
Velocity of capital means that I can recycle my money as quickly as possible to buy more and more assets with the same amount of funds. That's what velocity of capital means to me. And the quicker you do that, the more you amplify your net worth exponentially.
Yeah, I agree with that definition. If people ever read my book, One Rental at a Time, we weren't calling it velocity of capital. I don't think we put those words in the book, but that's what we were doing, right? We had enough capital to buy 3 units. That's all we had. And after that, it was all recycling capital. I think that's what I called it in the book. I recycled capital. So 3 became 8. Then, oh, by the way, it's not only cash out refis. It's not only BRRRR. I think most people think velocity of capital is BRRRR, which is fine when it works. Not really, pretty hard to do today. But there's also this magic 1031. 1031 exchange is a beautiful thing written into the tax code. I'm sure you've leveraged that as well.
I have leveraged 1031s. And the amazing thing about 1031s, which not many people talk about, there's so many ways to utilize a 1031. You could do a traditional 1031. You could actually do a reverse 1031 where you buy the asset and you identify the property you're selling. You can do a build to suit where you can put money aside from your 1031 to enhance the property you're buying. You can combine a reverse 1031 with a build to suit 1031. So there's so many ways that you can utilize 1031s that not many people talk about that can really amplify your wealth.
Yeah. Why don't you give an example of a 1031 you did? Just paint the vision of how you went from something to something bigger.
Absolutely. So I closed on this property, 9 Windsor Street. It was a 3-unit in Worcester. We bought it right in the MLS 2 years ago for $500,000. We, once we stabilized and hit the 1% rule, it made sense all day, right? So me and my partner split that 50-50. Come around 2 years later, he ended up bringing me a 6-plex in Worcester, Massachusetts. And think about this. In Worcester, Massachusetts, 3 plexes sell for $700,000. He brought a 6-plex for $700,000 to me. He's like, I got this thing running a contract. I want to buy this. I can't take it down. I'm like, funny you mentioned that. You and I have this asset that we could 1031 right out to into this property. And that's exactly what we did. We bought that 3-family for $500,000. 2 years later, we sold it for $675,000. And we 1031 that property right into a 6-plex right in Worcester, Massachusetts. And it's currently still in the process. We're closing on that on June 15th. We're already clear to close, so just waiting on the paperwork.
Yeah, it's really funny you bring this up because, again, my journey goes back 25 years now. The first time I did a 1031 exchange, I sold a single-family house for $263, I think. Just call it $260, and I bought a 5-unit for $228. Right. Wow. So again, it's really funny when you get into a market where an asset type like single family homes are just flat out overvalued because of bad financing in 06, and you 1031 into an asset that's underappreciated and underloved, you can really create outsized returns. And again, you move all the equity into a new asset, you skip the IRS. That's the magic of this. Totally. Is you're not peeling off 25% to the IRS, and they totally. Just yeah.
Totally. And I think when it comes to these 1031s, I don't think people realize the power of it, right? For this 3-plex, me and my partner brought $50,000 each, right? And now we're trading it into the 6-plex that literally appraised for $1 million. We're getting for $700,000. So we're literally walking into $300,000 in equity off that initial $50,000. And by the way, once we get the income on the 6-plex up to pro forma off the market rents, that thing's going to be worth 1.4, right? So me and my partner with $50,000 literally created $200,000-$300,000 of net worth in a matter of 2 years.
Yeah, it's really funny. I think I did the math one time. When I think of Norris Drive, which is the first property I ever bought, and we put $20,000 down, that one seed, I did let me just see if I can do it from memory. So $20,000 down, we did a $40,000 cash out refi about 18 months later. So we got all of our $20,000 plus $20,000 back.
Wow.
Then that became 2 other houses. Those 2 other houses, in about 2 years, we did a cash out refi. Let's call it $30,000 each. So that's now $60,000. Oh, by the way, I've already got my money back. Then, oh, by the way, I sell Norris Drive and I sell these other 2, which then become something like 50 units because of 1031 exchanges. Those 50 units go on to increase in value. I do a cash out refi on them, pull out several $100,000. And oh, by the way, I still own these assets. So that first $20,000 is probably responsible for 50 units, probably $8,000 a month in cash. And oh, by the way, is probably put $400,000 in my pocket over 25 years. Crazy, right?
Incredible. Oh my God. That $20,000 investment literally made you a millionaire. Literally made you a millionaire.
Many times over, probably.
Right?
Yeah. To be fair, folks, that $20,000 and 20 years, right? Let's not lose this. There's 20 years involved. It was not overnight.
but that 20 years is the definition of velocity of capital.
No, it's just a beautiful thing. And again, one of the things that I want people to realize is you got to know where you are in the cycle, right? I think investing has seasons, Andrew. I don't know if you will agree or disagree. Doesn't matter. We can talk about it. I think you need to know what season you're in.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a time in my life where I was in growth season. So I would go back to my properties and extract equity anytime it was there.
Totally.
Right. I would try to be around 70, 75%. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I would go get that capital because it was, frankly, it was faster and I could buy more assets. Right.
Exactly.
And then, in 2018, I left the rat race. I'm now financially free. I'm in a different season. I'm not going nearly as hard or as fast. What do you think about seasons of life for investors?
I mean, I absolutely agree with you. I mean, going into my financial freedom dream, like my dream was the house hack 10 multifamilies in 10 years, own 30 units and run off to the wind. That was my dream, right?
And that's funny. Mine was to get to 4. That's all I wanted. Like if I get to 4, I'd win.
It's incredible how this real estate thing takes a life of its own. But that was my initial dream, and like I've definitely achieved that. And to your point, like in growth mode, you absolutely have to suck out every last dollar you can in equity. But once you've reached your number, it comes down to like protection as well. You got to protect what you created, right? It's not all about risking FOMO, right? You got to protect all of the work you put in, right? So I totally agree with you. There are absolutely seasons. I'm definitely in growth season right now, but I could definitely see myself kind of skewing more towards where you're at right now, where you're protecting what you have.
Yeah, I think a buddy of mine, I think Dion said this first. It might have been Matt, but anyways, one of those two guys said, if you've already won the game, stop playing. Right? If whatever that number is, you stop. I mean, because again, at some point, if you keep playing and you FOMOing and you keep adding debt on debt, it doesn't always end well. So, but the other thing I love about real estate investing is I'll never stop, right? I'll do a 1 deal a year, 2 deals a year, even in slow-mo. Because once you have the skill set, the experience, the reputation, deals come to you, capital comes to you.
Totally.
And at some point, you got to go pick up that couple $100,000 that's laying on the ground.
And at a certain point, it just comes down to just being a puzzle, right? You just put the puzzle and the pieces in place, and then this magical, masterpiece comes to life, right? So once you get enough knowledge in real estate, like if you don't have the money, if you don't have the experience, if you don't have the time, if you know how to put the pieces together, you can take any deal down.
No, I love that. Well, part of your journey after you ran out of capital is you started going outside investors. Now, obviously, you did both syndication and JVs. Why don't we talk about JVs first, right? You talked about that triplex with a buddy. What do? You go find the deal first, the money second? How do you do JVs?
I typically get the deal under contract first, and then I find the money. If the deal is juicy enough, the money will come. Simple as that, right?
Yeah.
So that's typically how I get most of my deals. But let's be clear, like raising capital is not something you can do overnight. It's something that you have to build years and years of credibility and a reputation to be able to do that. And I don't recommend anybody raise capital. You definitely have to have, a decent amount of units under your belt before you even consider raising capital, because you really have to show proof of concept, right?
Yeah.
So sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to agree with you 100%. I see so many people out there preaching raising private money as the secret sauce to having no money. That's not how it works, folks. You've got to have a reputation, documented success. And oh, by the way, you're potentially borrowing money from friends and family to start with. And you don't want to gamble. It's not okay.
No, I mean, I would literally rather lose my own money than other people's money.
Oh,
seriously,
100 times over. That's so it's funny because I've never taken JVs, but I've borrowed millions of dollars from friends and family because I could put them in first position. That's my comfort level, right? I don't want a buddy of mine, on a triplex, for example. That's just not what Olivia and I decided to do. That's my wife. But again, I borrowed millions of dollars. I've done it 2 different times, once in the Great Recession and once in 2019 and 20. I'm you got to know what you're comfortable with. I'm comfortable with debt. And I don't want anybody else life events to make me have to make a real estate decision. Yeah. And then you went on to do some syndications. That's again something I have never done. What are we doing syndication? We're talking bigger properties, or what are you doing with syndications?
So typically when I use, so, just like Batman, you have to have a bunch of tools in your tool belt. You have to use the right tool depending on the right business plan, depending on the right asset, right? And syndications really make sense when it's a really large asset where you don't have the money to take it down and you need a multitude of investors, right? So my
Mhm.
first syndication was somebody brought a 69 unit portfolio to me in New Bedford, Massachusetts. I just went on bigger pockets. I was starting to get a little recognition. He thought I could raise the capital. I didn't know if I could. We'll talk about that later. But at the end of the day, he brought the deal to me. It was around 80K a door, and doors in that area traded for 120K a door. Made sense all day. We needed about $2 million. We didn't have the cash. Syndication model made sense.
Mm, I like it. Yeah. Again, these are all things that are, these are all tools in your tool belt. These are all, right tool for the right situation.
Mhm.
Makes a ton of sense. I'm curious, when you look at the real estate market today, I've called the housing market broken, meaning, we don't really have first time home buyers, high rates, high prices. When
Mhm.
you look at 2025 and out to 2026, what are you seeing? What are you doing? Again, I think the Northeast, where you are, is its own market, probably still a seller's market, where a lot of
Yes.
the country is a buyer's market. But what are you seeing today?
So, just keep in mind, like I'm an expert on my sub-market. I'm not an expert on the market as a whole, right? But New England in general is extremely insulated.
Mm.
It's extremely hard to build for number one. And when you do build, it costs you 250 to $300 a square foot to build. Like you don't even what you have
Wow.
to rent that for that to make sense, right?
Yeah.
So like that the housing supply is extremely limited and the housing demand is extremely high. And
Right.
combined with that, there's a very, very strong Section 8 program out there. So,
Mm.
during all of COVID, and at least in New England, housing prices didn't drop. They actually went
Mm.
up. And in my particular market, according to the HUD, the fair market rents went up 11% year over year.
Wow. Wow.
So,
So
yeah,
yeah, what is Andrew doing today? Are you looking for big things, little things, sitting on your hands? What does 2025 feel like?
so 2025, I've already closed on 150 doors, right?
Oh, is
Uh,
that all?
that's all. That's all. But my goal is 200, so I got 50 more before the end of the year.
Nice.
But I mean, ultimately, what I'm really doing to mitigate my risk is I'm investing in, high cap rate markets, in high concentration multifamily markets outside high growth cities. Think Providence, think Boston, cities like that, right? So I'm buying in areas where, when I achieve my pro forma or my market rents, the asset will produce a 9, 10, 11% cap rate cash and cash return, right? So that really is mitigating against high risk, right? And I'm
Mm.
actually combining that with value add multi, right? So I'm buying like these multifamily properties, like I gave you that example, New Bedford buying 80K a door and they're worth 120. I'm buying these multifamily on a price per unit basis at a 20 to 30% discount,
Mm.
combined with a 30 to 40% rent depression, right? So if I go in there and I raise the rents by 30, 40%, if these are commercial assets, 5+ unit properties, they're based on the income approach. I have the ability to suck the equity out because I essentially increase the value by 30, 40% by increasing the revenue or the net operating income of the same threshold, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of my approach. And you're asking, how do I JV these deals? I find deals, deep value add deals, where I have the ability to get money out in the form of a cash out refinance, in the form
Mhm.
of a 1031, where I can pay back the investor's capital while both
Right.
of us keep the asset.
No, I like that. So I'm curious, when you're taking down a fixer upper in one of these markets today,
Mm-hmm.
do they typically go Fannie Freddie? Are they of that size, or given quality, the refi will be Fannie and Freddie debt? Is it Fannie and Freddie day one, or is it at the refi?
So the magical thing about Massachusetts is we have some of the most competitive debt in the nation. We have
Mm.
over 300 local credit unions and banks. So
Oh,
we fund a lot of our loans through small local credit unions and banks and portfolio lenders, right?
okay.
And these lenders give us the most amazing terms you could ever think. They give us 75% LTV and they'll cover up to 75 to 100% of the construction at a six and a
Wow.
half, 7% interest rate, 30-year amortization, first year interest only. Like
Mm.
these are the terms I get. And like with debt like that, I can make most value at multi-family
Yeah.
work.
Now, again, that's not. I've never heard of. I did not realize Massachusetts was that unique. Because again, if you have 300 competitors bidding, you can really
Totally.
use that to your advantage. So lots of
Absolutely.
places don't have that. But you did bring up an interesting point that I think more investors should think about, and that is local credit unions and small banks. Right. A
Totally.
lot of the investors we speak with 89 unit buildings or whatnot, their goal is Fannie and Freddie debt.
Hmm.
But to your point, go visit your community bank. You never know. They very likely want to help you and could beat Fannie Freddie.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about Fanny Freddy a lot of times is they have pretty ridiculous prepayment terms. Like they lock you in for
Yeah, they do.
a long time, and they make you like pay back the interest at a certain point if you exit early. Like these
Yeah.
small local credit unions and banks, especially. I don't know if many people know this. A lot of times, it's actually against a credit union's charter to have a prepaid penalty, right? So
Oh,
if our plan, this whole point of this conversation of velocity of capital, right? So what does that mean? That means we have to have the ability to suck the equity out of the deal in the form of a cash out refinance, in the form of a line of credit, in the form of a 1031 exchange. And the only way you can do that is when the bank allows that with
yep.
minimal prepayment penalties and things of that nature, which these small local credit unions and banks offer all the time.
Yeah, that's an amazing strategy. So when you're taking down one of these larger apartment buildings, the timeline's what? 18 months, 2 years to kind of, from day one ownership to exit with a different loan. Is that about right?
We typically aim for eight 8 to 18 months. It's kind of what we're
8 to
aiming
18.
for.
Okay.
Eight
All
to
right.
18 months. We have a very aggressive strategy, but a lot of times we're buying these portfolios with a large majority of these tenants are Section 8. And
Sure.
the magical thing about Section 8 is you can request a rent increase to market every single year. So,
Hmm.
like for example, me and my partner, we bought this 39 unit portfolio in Worcester, Massachusetts. The monthly rent roll on that portfolio was around $48,000 when we bought it. Six
Okay.
months later, we brought that rent roll to $72,000 per month simply because 75% of the population were Section 8. And we just went to the Section 8 rep and just asked for a market adjustment.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of people don't realize that Section 8 has that flexibility to reassess,
Totally.
right? Yeah. And what percentage of your portfolio today is Section 8? Any rough guess?
I would probably say around 30 to 50% of my portfolio Section
Yeah.
8.
Yeah.
Um,
Ours is about 50, I think,
and
Section 8 versus market.
And I absolutely love Section 8. I mean, for a multitude of reasons. First of all, you're guaranteed a rent increase every single year. You don't have to fight the tenant, right? With Section 8, your vacancy is way lower. These people stay in units for 3 to 5 years
Mm-hmm.
compared to other renters where they're in and out. And it's just, and it's not that once you're in, it's not that hard to keep the money flowing. I mean, they just do an annual inspection. You
Yeah.
fix a couple dinky things, you get your money. It's a
Yeah.
very easy program to work with.
No, I love the annual inspections. A lot of landlords
Yeah.
hate it. I love it. In my situation, I have a property manager because I'm not near my properties. So I actually use the inspections to check the property manager.
Yeah.
So I'm in, right. And if something comes back bad, I yell at the property manager like, "What the hell are you doing? I'm not a slumlord. Go fix that stuff. What are you
But
doing?"
I PM, so I'd be yelling at myself. But yeah,
Yeah, it's
I
okay.
totally right.
It happens. Sometimes you miss stuff. Sometimes you miss, or they just don't tell you, right? That
Oh
also
yeah,
happens. Yeah,
totally.
that's not okay. So I'm curious, where does this journey go for you? You're still a very young guy, a lot of success, 350 units, 150 of the 200 bought this year, which is pretty awesome. Where does this? Where does the vision? You got to get to 1,000, or where does this? Where's your vision, Andrew?
So going into this, I think my vision. Well, not going into this, I adjusted, but I'm thinking, I want to be around 10,000 units in 10 years. I want to travel to 100 countries. I want to help 10,000 people reach financial independence. Because as you and I both know, the more success you achieve, the more you feel like you have to give back because you wouldn't
Yeah,
achieve the success without other people helping you
yeah,
along the way, right?
yeah.
So I think those are some of my goals. But honestly, at this point, I'm just enjoying the ride. Like I left my W-2 in June 2024. Prior to that, I was working through my W-2 the entire time I was building my real estate portfolio. And it's kind
Nice.
of I just want to enjoy the fruits of my labor for maybe a couple months. It's kind of where I'm
There
at
you
right
go.
now.
Yeah, I love that. So I'm curious when your units today, they all seem to be within 90 minutes of each other, 2 hours. Like if you were to do
Yeah,
a circumference.
that's
Uh,
exactly correct. So we pretty much aim to buy within an hour outside of our area.
Okay,
And we self-manage it. We self-manage about 250 doors. We have 19 employees. A
nice.
lot of the employees are international, which it's a great resource if nobody knows how to utilize virtual assistants.
Yeah,
But yeah, we pretty much buy within an hour outside of Worcester, Massachusetts.
like it. And when you talk about 10,000 units, that stays the same. Your buy box doesn't change. You're not going to Ohio or Kentucky or anything. It's in and around your area.
So, if you're trying to get outsized returns, you have to maintain control. right?
Yeah.
And I think it's extremely important to invest in your backyard if you have the ability to. So
Agreed.
that's what I plan on doing. I plan on continuing growing in my market, and I've been in my market so long, like you got to imagine the amount of deal flow that just comes to me because just people just know me. Like to
Right.
recreate that in another market would literally take years and years of network.
I couldn't agree with that more. I get asked all the time, why have you stayed in one market for 25 years? I'm like, you have any idea how hard it was to build this network? There's no chance I want to do that again. It's
Oh
like
yeah.
no chance. I'm
And
too
like,
lazy.
think about it. How easy is it for you to find a deal now versus when you first started? People probably just
Oh,
bring you deals. You probably just sit in
they
your butt
just
every day and you get 5 deals brought to you.
yeah, no, it is comical how many deals I evaluate today off market versus, how I started. It's wild.
Totally.
Um, but again, you have some amazing goals. You want to help 10,000 people, Andrew. If somebody wanted to reach out, follow you, obviously there's those Bigger Pockets interviews, which I think you've been on 3 times. Congratulations.
Thank
But
you.
do you have your own YouTube or Instagram, or where can people follow your amazing journey?
They can follow me on Instagram and Investor Freed or Facebook and LinkedIn on Andrew Freed. I'm always
Very,
trying to provide value and provide knowledge to the world. So definitely give me a follow.
very cool, folks. You're always asking for more and more new investor stories. Here's the one, Andrew Freed. One more time, what's the IG page?
Investor Freed.
Give him a follow. Thanks, buddy.
Thank you.